Good morning, everyone, and I'm very privileged to be talking to you this morning. So we're talking about purpose today. What is purpose and why is it important? And I think if you look at the generic dictionary definition, it's the reason for which something is done, it's created, it's the reason for which something exists. The Renaissance era actually gave birth to the idea of imperial ecology, which meant that humanity, its knowledge of science and ecology, should be used to gain dominance over the natural world. And this predominant ideology ran right through the Renaissance era, as well as into the industrial evolution of the 18th and 19th century. It was only in the late 19th century and early 20th century that the modern green movement actually developed in organizations. So we've had quite an interesting time, and I think all the presentations we've actually been to have touched on this on one way or another. We had a global pandemic, and I mean, pandemics do happen, but never ones that shut the whole globe down. Life as we know it came to a screeching halt, and scientists actually saw that emissions levels went down before pre-industrial levels. So we became a lot more aware of our impact on the environment, and I'm sure many of you will recall the social media pictures that were going around animals coming back into society that haven't been there before, and deers in the middle of the streets. It was quite heartwarming to see. But what it did show is that we have a big impact on the planet. And fortunately, global shutdown is not really a sustainable option to address the climate change issue. So governments and businesses around the world were saying, well, you know, we're going to have to build back better because we've noticed our impact and we need to build back better. So the Earth had a chance to breathe, and sustainability earned its chair at the boardroom table. So if you have a look, another area of what COVID absolutely highlighted was remote working conditions. And that just really blew all those traditional working paradigms apart. I mean, 10 years ago, you start talking about flexible work. I'm sure you got the hairy eyeball like, no, that's never going to happen. Now it's our new reality. So supply chains globally had to relook at how do they service their customers. So many disruptions. We're so interconnected and globally interconnected. And this really was a big problem during that time. Shutdown of China led to breaks in the manufacturing supply chain, as well as the availability of goods. And what it did do is that companies that had sustainability already embedded in their businesses, so the social, environment, governance, they actually managed to pivot right through this. There's a lot of research has been done on the role that it has played in causing resilience and adaptability. So technology and digitalization became the forefront of this connectedness. And yes, I have conflict there. I really don't want to give it too much time, but I don't think any of us realized that this was going to happen, and it really has played havoc with the global oil price. So I really love this graphic from Gartner, and it's a new take on the traditional pillars of people, planet, profit, although it's still there. This comes from the 2021 report around purpose-driven supply chains and the value thereof, and they talk about pivoting to a sustainable profit. So what does that mean? It means that business's purpose is to make profit, but one can't just make profit without being responsible and knowing where the money comes from. Making purpose personal. Critical. You have to have an aligned workforce. People first culture. It's really, really important to build brand loyalty. And actually, COVID played a big role in that because we were all sort of working towards, okay, we've got to make this work, and it's going to have to happen, and we've got to get through this. And that really did bring everyone together. My favorite part of this on the planet part is build value-aligned ecosystems. What does that mean? It means collaboration. Collaborating with partners, redesigning, recreating, taking existing products and seeing where you can improve and make better. And that's really, really important part of this whole process. We're never going to be able to do this in isolation. We have to collaborate, and we work in an ecosystem. So clients are buying the sustainability of their partners. With every purpose has an action, and every action has a result.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I remember 2007 attending my first Apex conference, and this isn't actually part of the prepared part, but I remember 2007 sitting in a talk by Dr. Jack Bacon, And I remember back then he was a keynote speaker, and if I recall correctly, the talk was about the way in which technology was going to embetter Earth. And 12 years later, I'm realized, I sat there thinking to myself that you have to be seriously intellectual and intelligent to stand in front of a room of supply chain specialists and think that you're going to teach them anything. But I realized standing here today, intelligence has nothing to do with it. It's got a lot to do with bravery. So yeah, let us take you through the story. So I'm going to kick off and manage some expectations around the room. I think first and foremost, I want to clarify what this presentation is, but also importantly, what this presentation is not. What this presentation is not for the fellow industrial supply chain engineers out there is an in-depth, detailed analytical analysis that rounds up and summarizes in a well-populated how-to manual as to how you're going to achieve and optimize your organizational purpose. That's not what this is. What this is, however, is a vulnerable, authentic look at the journey we've been on and the learnings that we've had over the past 5 years and understanding how innovative operational excellence, how an optimized, cultivated organizational culture and sustainability really drives the attainment of that purpose. What we don't have is all the answers. So if you are hoping to come to a room where we can tell you how to get there, you're in the wrong room. I'll give you a minute to leave. But what we can tell you is we want to enthusiastically share our learnings, our faults, our mistakes with you. And hopefully you can take that with you on your journey and also apply that to your own value proposition. First off, I want to start with the Unitrans Supply Chain Solutions purpose. So our purpose as a trusted service provider is to extend our range of services with existing and future customers to provide them with the space to focus on growing their core business. Our mission, quite simply, is to be relentless in our pursuit to become the safest, the most innovative, integrated operational services partner in South Africa by constantly unlocking the value of our stakeholders. And our aspiration is to be recognized as a leading provider in integrated operational services, leveraging our strong contractual base and our strategic alliances with our clients. But before we get into that, I want to tell you how this all began. And it took a lot of time for me to vet that I can actually share this with you, because I do have a few competitors in the room, but here we go. In 2017, we lost a petroleum tanker. The kicker is we only realized that we lost it at the end of the year when we did a fixed asset recon. And the further kicker is we realized that we didn't actually lose it. It was stolen 6 months earlier. It was taken across the Botswana border. It was rebranded, and it's been subbying for us for 5 months since. So from the board came a very simplistic one-liner memo that said, find technologies that will make sure that you do not lose trucks. That's about as humble and a humorous start as you can possibly have in this journey. So we kick off the big, hairy, audacious goal with regards to building an integrated organizational supply chain strategy that hosts, in essence, a central room of intelligence that through multiple API integrations allows various technologies to talk to a certain point, and that technologies and the information that creates the data really does one thing. It gives all of the leadership in the business the capability to make the right decisions faster. The challenge is, and I can share that over there, is that we then run into the lipstick factory challenge. So the lipstick factory challenge is the previous leader of our organization. And since over the past 5 years, I've become very close personal friends with him. So I'm sure you won't mind me sharing the story. I'm busy sitting across the leader of the table. This is week 1 of a 5-year journey, sharing this big, hairy, audacious goal, where we're going to go, the intrinsic value it's going to determine, the optimization that it's going to bring, the fast decision-making that it'll occur. And I remember Tiens taking his glasses off and wiping it on his shirt. He was a tall, close to 7 foot Afrikaans white man. He's been in transport for 40 years. He probably can tell you what a tire tastes like. And I remember looking over and seeing that I've absolutely lost him, and he wiped his glasses clean and he put it down on the table, and I'll translate for you. He said, Greeff, I'll worry about the trucks and making money, and you worry about your lipstick factory. And that initial punch in the gut was a clear realization with regards to almost what a lack of insight is really how it's going to hold you back from obtaining the larger goals over a longer term. Thank God, fortunately, we were able to crack that one and break down the walls of communication that allowed us to achieve our inevitable goals. And as I stand here today, I can very happily tell you that we currently operate in an organization that not only allows for forward failure, but it promotes it. We play everybody with their strengths as far as possible. And I think something that's really played in our favors a lot, we make a point of making sure that every single person in the organization, as far as possible, regardless of managerial level, understands how their specific task, day in, day out, drives that purpose that I've just shared with you. So what did we do? We started focusing on our culture first. And when I said earlier, this is a vulnerable, authentic look, this is a 5-year storyline of everything that we've done wrong and a quick summation of how everything ended up working into our favor. So firstly, we started taking ownership. There's a saying in Unitrans Supply Chain Solutions that says every person deserves to feel seen, heard, appreciated, and understood. That really is the bedrock of our organization, and our entire culture is built from it. We started communicating with our staff authentically. We implemented various culture surveys to understand what are the real things that are bugging the staff, what are the things that are keeping staff unhappy, what's causing that, I heard this saying yesterday, it's so brilliant, what's causing that ugly feeling in your stomach on a Sunday night when the Carte Blanche song starts playing, because you know tomorrow morning is Monday. Because that's culture. If you can solve that problem, then you've cracked it. The next couple of ones are, again, showing a vulnerability. We cut out swearing in our language use. So we admittedly, and we strive constantly not to be male-dominated, but the truth is we are. It's a male-dominated industry, and swearing creeps into linguistic use. And we took a very strong stance against that, regardless of whether ladies or other men were in the room. Swearing was taken out. And it seems like such a small, frivolous thing, but it serves such a great purpose in really trying to make people want to feel part of a bigger entity that they really want to be part of. We started sharing in initiatives on how to really keep respect. It started off as clear instruction by our CEO, Terry Bantock, which I have the world of respect for, that when a lady enters the room, you stand up, regardless of if you're midway through your budget speech. And that then progressed to, if anybody walks into the boardroom, you stand up to greet them, and not necessarily only the ladies. And then the biggest one for me that I hold very, very dear to is cleaner versus the CEO. You have to maintain the same level of respect when you speak to Liesl, our cleaner, when you walk into my office, than you do when you're speaking to Terry. And really make a point. It's an advice that Terry's given me 15 years ago, and I still practice that every day. When you shake someone's hand and you look them in the eye and you ask, how are you doing? That's not a comment to pass the moment. That is a question. So you have the option of saying good morning and moving on. But if you pose the question, how are you doing? Listen to how that person is doing and actually make a point of having a conversation. And if that turns into a 5-minute conversation and you're on your way to a meeting and there's budget speeches that need to be done and presentations that needs to be built, it is your commitment to ask the question, take that moment to listen and really provide that sense of leadership to them. Sorry, it's back. Anticipating the chaos. So in December, beginning of January 2020, Terry gives me a call on a Sunday night and he says he has a friend that has a business in China, a place called Yuan, that packs, they do exportation and importation. And he wants to come talk to us about this flu virus that's spiked in China. So I don't think anything of it. I call a meeting for the executive team and in walks this gentleman on a Wednesday afternoon. He walks in. Give consideration, this is 3 months before COVID really hits in South Africa, to the extent I was actually knowing what this is about. So in walks this gentleman, he's got a mask on, he's got latex gloves on, he's got a little sanitizer hanging from his belt, he's got this long pointing pen that he kind of points at everything, he doesn't want to touch anything, and he actually set up a warehousing factory in Ground Zero, and in January decided to move back to what he was seeing. In essence, encapsulated his entire family, locked them down, and he came to speak to our executive team about what he has seen in China 3 months before it actually took place. And admittedly so, and I hate the fact that this is the truth, but it is. 5 minutes into this presentation, I'm texting our CFO under the table saying, is this a practical joke? Is this guy for real? Because I can't imagine how this off-the-wall guy is actually telling us that the world is about to go into lockdown. But we use that information and we embrace our uncertainty by starting to look at direct interface with our customers, direct interface with our clients. Should this happen, what are the routes that may be impacted? What are the businesses that may be impacted? What is our daily performance on track and vehicle kilometer perspective in order to how do you drive that bottom line? And how do you really keep an overall perspective of the strategic intent of the business? We become, or at least we aim to be emotionally more aware. This is a tough one, I think, for all of us. For various reasons, but I think the main reason being emotionally aware for us has been understanding that difference between empathy and sympathy, where sympathy is you can listen to someone's problem and then move on with your life knowing that they have a tough time and possibly feel bad for them because of it. Empathy is really walking a mile in their shoes, understanding how they are impacted, and having that level of understanding really makes people want to be part of a larger entity that you drive. If you can share the pain and keep a clear mind from decision making, I think that's really where the character and the leadership comes to front. Communication is such an overused, cheesy word, but communication is not just a word. It's the word, the lock, the door, the frame and the concrete wall in which it's built. It's everything. We have started communicating at 1 million miles a pace. And that takes me to the last one, own your vulnerability. The truth is we don't always have the answers, but people would rather be communicated to in a work environment than sit there and wait for the right answers to come along. If you don't have the answers, share. This is the position that we are in. These are the challenges that we are facing. We as leadership don't know the answers, but we promise to keep you updated and keep the frequency of that information rolling as good as possible. So from a cultural perspective, what were our learnings? We aligned purpose, outputs, and frameworks. We built purpose into the value proposition, critical for each person in the business to understand how they contribute to the larger purpose. Talent management and attraction, retention, really looking at that the flex culture in business and really coming to front now. And how do you entice younger generation to be part of your organization? Sharing the vision and the role with each person in the journey, as I stated. And then you don't always need to have the right answers, but keep people informed. The next slide, and I've just changed my mind. I'm going to do this. I was going to talk you through each of them, but I want to just paint a picture for you. When we started, so this is focusing on the operational excellence side. When we started in 2017, going to say this slowly because I still struggle to believe it myself. Operational excellence had a staff complement of 2 people that reported into a technical manager, that reported into a SHEC manager, that reported into a technical executive role. It had zero presence in our organization. We were a tracking entity. We picked product up from point A. We delivered it at point B. We tried to do that as good as we possibly can, make a margin. That was the business model. But over the past 5 years, there's such a clear realization that operational excellence is fundamental to the achievement of the purpose in an organization. Where we are today, organizational excellence is 175 staff members strong. It consists of 8 subdivisions, working on a 9th. And I don't want to go into the detail of each of these with you. What I do want to leave you with is this idea. Every single one of these divisions, each in its entity, directly drives the purpose of our organization. But the culminative result is that much stronger because of the integrated nature in which they operate. So COC operational, centralized operational control is a centralized control tower that we run out of Kenilworth, Cape Town. It hosts roughly about 80 people that seats in the room. It's an amalgamation of 12 different ancillary technologies that all integrate through an API network for one platform in order to have the answers where the drivers are on driver behavioral styles, which is very important to us. Operational system development, we're not system developers. It took us about 2 years to figure this out. It's not a space that we're in, and we're not good at it. So what we decided to do is to partner with functional resource partner who is a full stack development house. And over the past 3 years since that partnership, our internal development from a system software perspective has flourished. Operational system improvement, these are the guys that build the nerd bridge. Have you guys ever heard that term? Nerd bridge is analysts and my propeller heads, coincidentally the next guys, CBI improvement, those are my industrial engineers. These are the guys that can go into a dark room, find a problem and build you the most incredible solution. Then you give that solution to a transport controller that sits at a depot, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, the implementation falls flat. Operational system implementation, they build that nerd bridge. So they tell you how that operational efficiency is actually implemented at operational level. take that solution, make it their own, and actually drive it alongside the implementation side, which has been crucial for our success. Operational risk management, we have a set team of internal investigators. These are the guys really keeping us up to date with strikes, rioting that takes place, and it feeds all into a central engine that empowers the organization as a whole. Centralized check services, very much like any other check service that you've seen. Only major difference is we've separated risk from check and we've made it a centralized function. And then centralized fuel management. We do the procurement for all of our fuel centrally by a team of 3 people. We procure roughly, on average, about 100 million litres of fuel per year. Given the current price, you can do that some quickly. That's quite a big task to manage. And then accelerated organizational sustainability is the new baby in the team, Liesl, and I'll get to that shortly. Interdepartmental optimization, maybe just quickly one sentence on it. One thing that we've picked up on, we also busy manage our individual silos, as we all are, and you're stuck into the detail as to what you need to do today and the optimization that you need to drive, but nobody in our organization currently is taking a step back and saying, well, if you do this and you do that, what is the link and opportunity between the two of you? And this is what we're hoping to create in the next couple of months. I'm going to put up all the results, and I'm going to remind you of the fact that this is not a statistical in-depth analysis of the return on investment of operational excellence. We can have that presentation, and that's probably 3 hours to its own. All this slide is to show you the impact that operational excellence has given on our operations, simply focusing on one thing, safety in the organization. I'm not talking here about operational efficiency. I'm not talking about turnaround time. I'm not talking about reduced standing time, giving benefit to bottom line and potential creation of new top line revenue. I'm simply talking about safety. Over the past 24 months, we've seen a 37% reduction in speeding in our fleet, 24% reduction in harsh acceleration, and 32% in harsh braking. Potential reduction in possible accidents. Why would we measure that? About 2 years into trying to manage accidents down, we realized that if you manage the behavioral analysis that leads into an accident, the direct impact is the reduction of the accidents direct. Challenge we have at the moment is that lots of our third-party accidents on our road is constantly increasing, possibly speaking to road congestion, but that's a different discussion. Illegal stops, 78% reduction. This is a crazy stat to call and claim and own. 78% of each of our 2,143 vehicles in our business no longer take a stop or a break in an area where they are not supposed to be. Don't understand me wrong, we still are drivers that are spending too much time in areas where they are supposed to be, but at least we know they're not stopping in areas where they're not supposed to go. Failure to keep an eye, a 62% reduction, and then a cell phone usage, a whopping 46% that has been reduced. So where to from here? Maybe showing our age. By a show of hands, does anybody remember a movie called The Minority Report? It's one of my favorites. Tom Cruise. Or he's a CIA agent, he walks into this cool room. I see Jonathan here in the front has no idea what I'm about to talk about. So it's Tom Cruise, he's a CIA agent, and the CIA has built this machine where they can see the future, basically. But it's super cool. He walks into this room, he's got these white gloves on, and he's got these holographic images that he moves around. And then, boop, this little red ball pops out, and it's got a name on. And the name is someone that is going to commit a murder in the next 24 to 48 hours. They then obviously have the ability to go and change the series of events that leads to the murder. Well, we kind of built it, but we built it for our drivers. So what we did is we took 5 years worth of behavioral analysis through predictive analytics, and we said, if Marius is driving TS001, based on the past 5 years, levels of concentration in his driving style tips down between Wednesday morning 7 to 9 and Friday afternoons between 5 to 3. There's a variety of reasons that we can go into to investigate that, but we don't pre-allocate high stoppage amount of routes to Marius during those times. We measure the overall influence of the business that leads to a reduction in those possible accidents. So in a way, we took a lot of time viewing our trucks, where the trucks are, where they're supposed to go, what they're supposed to be doing, how long they should be standing there. The moment we turned the camera around and we started observing the user of the vehicle, that's really when the data started becoming alive. Because then we could understand what are the reasons for certain type of behaviors, what is an aggressive driving style versus a less aggressive driving style. And that impact really strives towards our main goal, and that's to A, keep our people safe, but obviously keeping our trucks safe on the road as well. We have, super humbly, I was considering whether I should put this on or not, we have super humbly started dabbing our feet under robotic process automation. And if I say recently, I'm talking 3-4 months in and already seeing a hell of an impact in our business. I'll give you one case in point. So we've got 3 different of the 12 technologies that monitors the driver itself. The one is a camera that views the drivers in the vehicle once a gyrometer is disturbed when there's a braking or a harsh cornering or there's a potential impact. We have a tracking unit that obviously says where the vehicle is, and then we've got an immobilizing unit that allows a specific driver to drive as a specific truck. The challenge is those are all 3 different technologies. So through API integration across the 3, we now at least know from our cyber payroll system that when Marius puts the tag into TS006, it's Marius that marries the specific truck. But when the alert goes off on the road and the camera is activated and we can't see the face of the driver, his coaching session can't be set up according to who needs it. But the truck knows who its driver is through this integration. So through robotic process automation, we've been able to write a bot over the past 2 months that basically does that link on our behalf. So it goes to service provider A and says who's the driver, it goes to service provider B and says what is the truck marriage, it goes to service provider C and says what is the imagery that's married, and it puts out a very simplistic coaching model for us that says Marius on TS006 was eating a hamburger on the N3 at that date. Provide you with a coaching methodology. Not rocket science in any way, but really kind of entering into that phase of understanding what this real value of RPA can be for us. So we've had a look at operational excellence, we've had a look at culture, and I want to hand over to Liesl shortly, but before I do, in October of last year, and I just saw Kobus outside, I don't know if Kobus is in the room, let's see him. And Kobus came up to me and said, so are you net zero yet? No, we're definitely not net zero yet. As a matter of fact, in October of last year, the conversation regarding sustainability were really sexy acronyms and terms that we used in passageway conversations. We were nowhere. So we really started taking a long, hard look at what is this thing about sustainability? What does it mean? What is it really intrinsic to our business? We want to own it. We want to own the narrative. So what we decided is to get an industry expert into our business, and I can very excitingly say over the past 9 months, it is a world of information and knowledge that has opened up to us. Really realizing A, what we don't know, B, what we're still going to know, and but I think most importantly is plotting that roadmap to the point where you have a pledge on the wall with a signature of a CEO that says, I own the fact that these are the narratives that we want to drive, and I know the impact on the environment as well as I know the impact on the ROI. And with that, Liesl.
Thanks, Jacques. So I really don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but the climate's ticking. We have all these massive macroeconomic changes, but slowly but steadily, our climate change is getting worse and worse and worse. And last year in November, just before Glasgow, the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, released the report which was dubbed the Code Red for Humanity. And in the report, they clearly stated we are heading towards a warming that has run away. And in order to abate that, we really have to reach deep emission reductions. That's when the net zero by 2050 conversation started. So climate's scientific evidence is unequivocal that climate change is a threat to human well-being and planetary health. And we have a small margin of space to make a difference, but it's getting smaller by the day. So the diagram on the left there talks about how greenhouse gases are measured through the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. And you see you've got scope 1, 2, and 3 in scope. 1 and 2 are basically bedded down by most companies. But what we're seeing now is that there's a massive uptick in trying to understand what is your scope 3 emission. And those are your value chain emissions. As you can imagine, there's a lot of stakeholders that you need to talk to, engage with, and get information from. And transport is definitely a material aspect within that, within a supply chain. And customers are demanding visibility and accountability on value chain emissions. And this trend is only increasing. In fact, in 2014, I presented at a SAPEX conference. It was me and 2 other people. And we were like the outliers. It's like, yeah, okay, cool, this green stuff is a bit fluffy, but we'll look at it. Enter 2022, and it's seriously hit a space where we're having a whole conference around it. So Unitrans recognizes that it's imperative to develop and implement sustainable business practices. So we committed to our ESG. And there's a lot of sort of commentary around, well, it's not just about the planet. It also has to take into consideration your people and obviously your sustainable profit. So we ascribe to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I don't know if those UN gentlemen are in the audience at all or still here. But we subscribe to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And what those goals do, there's 17 goals. They're wide range. They talk about no poverty, zero hunger, responsible consumption, water use, but they provide a framework for business to address all these elements. So what we've done is we've mapped our business according to these Sustainable Development Goals. Each goal has a metric that you can measure, because this industry really loves metrics and KPIs and measurements. So it has the metrics that you can measure under each one, and it also allows you to see where your opportunities are for improvement. So we've mapped our business to it. We know where we sit, we know where our wedges are, and we also know where we need to improve. And now we're busy in the process of understanding what are our aspirational SDGs that we can now choose to make a difference in the business, which will absolutely inform our initiatives and our strategy. So the area is accelerated organizational sustainability. Value proposition is pretty simplistic for me. It's how do we embed this in the business DNA? It's not going to be successful unless it's embedded in the business DNA. And the reason being is that it actually underlies everything we do. And that's why it's really great to be part of an operational excellence team, because we need the data. We need the visibility of the data to show our clients, to show our employees, this is what you're doing. We spent a lot of time to kick off this portfolio with the business, understanding the reporting process flows. Where does the data sit? Who owns the data? Where do they get the data from? What is in and out of the scope? What's the reporting boundary? And it's very clear to have that in place. So getting the fundamentals in place was key critical. The next process was to say, well, I call it the vibe indicator. What is the vibe towards sustainability? And I'm thankful to say there's good vibes only, which is really awesome, and a lot of positivity and a lot of interest around it. So also a lot of like, how does this impact me in my role? How does this impact, I understand it personally, but how does it impact me professionally? And using the data through the very clever engineers we have in our CBI team has really allowed us to explain and position it correctly with the team, which has been really, really great. Also, identifying your stakeholders is key critical. I mean, stakeholders are not only internal, we also have quite a few external stakeholders. So getting involved in the industry dialogue, knowing what's going on in your industry is really important. And having that conversation, we don't have all the answers, nobody does. We're only going to get them through working through this together. And it is a global problem and challenge. So just some of the critical success factors, executive ownerships, including in the scorecard and the business. So I was really lucky to have absolute support from Terry, Jacques, and the Exco team. And they've really been supporting this process, which has helped so much, because you're never going to get it embedded in the DNA unless it comes from the top down and it's in your strategy. Authentic communication along with tools. So it's one thing to say to your business, okay, we've got to reduce this, but you have to empower them. How are we going to reduce it? That's key critical. So providing them with the tools and the manner to do that. And also training and education is really, really important. Systems in place to measure initiatives. Well, it's not only successful initiatives, it's also failures. So our technical team test everything. They get a fuel additive, they want to test it, see if it works. Does it deliver the savings? Is it suitable for our business? And if it's not, well, then we know. And it's really important to try out these new technologies and see if they work or not work. And then last but not least, but is really very important, is your non-financial data integrated with your financial data. So in South Africa, a lot of JSE-listed companies are already doing this under the King 4 code and on the JSE. And IFRS have now actually created a whole sustainability data disclosure format, but it's really saying you cannot report your financial numbers without including your non-financial numbers, which speaks to the integration of sustainability into your business strategy. So some of the key learnings: start with a clear purpose. I mean, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. You can't just jump into the journey without having a clear destination in mind. So that's really, really critical. Linked to that, what is missing and what needs to change? So what systems do we have? What's missing out of that? How are we going to improve it? Who do we collaborate with to improve it further? And that's really, really important. And of course, where there's change, there has to be change management. That is key critical. Speaking to the business, engaging with the business, you are going to get some resistance, but it's important to understand where's that resistance coming from and work together to try and resolve it. So change management is really, really important. The communicate authentically and ethical leadership, for me, go hand in hand. People are looking to the leaders now, especially after the trauma we've gone through globally with COVID, to be authentic, to be honest, to tell the story as it is. And it's really important, especially in this space, to be authentic. And awareness of our role in the ecosystem. Businesses don't operate on an island. We operate in a community. We have an impact in the community. If the planet doesn't work properly, then we can't do our business properly. And that leads me to Jacques.
Ladies and gentlemen, so the journey is a long one, and the steep is definitely a steep one. But you don't climb a mountain with one giant leap from the foot of the hill to the top of the mountain. You climb it one steady step at a time. And with a purpose-driven organizational culture, an invigorated focus and need to achieve operational excellence in your business, and a keen interest and commitment to accelerated organizational sustainability, this is definitely a climb that we are keen for and looking forward to take. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Liesl and Jacques, thank you very, very much. That is a wow presentation from my point of view.
Thank you.
We literally have time for about one question. Has anyone? There's a hand right in front.
So, Jacques, I don't know if it's two questions. In terms of all the components of braking, acceleration, speeding, and all of that, could you correlate return on investment with a decrease of that in terms of avoiding accidents? And you spoke also about empathy and sympathy. In a cultural change, in terms of transport, you know, people will talk about transport and the old way of thinking things and all of that. How was that change? Because I know Liesl is completely passionate about this. How did you get that change from an exco and the senior managers, the GMs, and that type of senior to mid-level management, that change in terms of understanding the importance of this and being more safe?
I've got 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm going to try and attempt to answer both in one. So I'm going with a practical example. In November of last year, Kobus Burger, who heads up our mining division, came to us and said, there's a massive rise in accidents on Wednesday mornings in his business. He said there's a massive rise of accidents in his business. We took a step back, we put some industrial engineers in, and we just started looking at the raw data. And we found out that there's a massive spike of incidents on Wednesday mornings between 7 and 9. And it resurfaces again on Friday afternoons, but not to the same propensity. Came back and we asked, is it the same shift patterns? Yes, it was. Is it the same set of drivers? Yes, it is. Are the trucks different during those times? No, they aren't. Is it special routes? Same routes. And really through that method of investigative analysis and really understanding and showing that empathy with regards to the challenges that's faced, we inserted some of our industrial engineers into the work pool itself. Spent some time with the guys, understand what are the challenges internal to the work environment, also what are the challenges external to the work environment. And then one of our industrial engineers, Nkosi, very good football player, he was actually invited to go play football with the guys afterwards, after hours. And then what we found out is that about a month before these incidents started improving, well, increasing at least, the payment structure changed. So instead of paying the guys monthly, they got weekly salaries. And the salary was paid in on Tuesday evenings. So Wednesday morning, you show up for work, you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed after the previous night, not. And then the Wednesday evening, that's followed with, obviously guys getting together. And then on the Thursday night, everybody plays soccer together. So understanding, and it's a late night, and there's obviously shish and yamas that the guys go to afterwards, and that's a challenge that you face. So those two entirely external to the business environment itself, from an empathetic perspective, was us to understand what the real challenges are that these guys are facing outside of the business hours. We changed the payment structures back to monthly, accidents disappeared.
I think that's about time. Again, thank you both very, very much. And we have a little sort of token of our appreciation.
Thank you so
from
much.
Both.